What on earth is diatomaceous earth? You have a handout on diatomaceous earth. You should have one. Raise your hand if you don't have one. Corky doesn't have one. Cheryl doesn't have one. Okay. Everybody else has one. Diatomaceous earth. What on earth is diatomaceous earth? Now, it seems like there's a lot of suspense with this because I've had a lot of people ask me, what is this? I don't know what this is. Well, that's what we're going to talk about it for. Diatomaceous earth is basically phytoplankton or algae that live in fresh and salt water. And when these little single-celled organisms, they only live about 6 days. While they're living, they kind of coat themselves with silica, which is a very important element in the body. And as they coat themselves with this, that silica gets really thick and forms kind of an exoskeleton around the plankton or the algae. When they die, when the diatoms die, they're called diatoms, there's these little algae and phytoplanktons. When they die, the exoskeleton falls to the bottom of the ocean floor or the floor of lakes or whatever, and they just pile up and they make this diatomaceous earth. It's really not earth at all. It's like fossil shells. And what happens is it's taken and it's ground up into a fine powder and it's used. Now, here's some pictures. That's the actual single-celled organism. Here's some pictures of diatoms. Aren't those beautiful shapes? They kind of remind me of snowflakes. Only God could make something so awesome. Now, the edges of these things, this picture will show it a little bit better, are very sharp and they're very, very hard. So that if you take it as a person, if you take it internally, it kind of scrubs the colon as it passes through the body. We'll talk more about using it for human use in just a little bit. But it's also used for pest control. Look at these shapes. Aren't those beautiful? I think they're so pretty. Now, diatomaceous earth is used for a lot of things. One of the things that it's used for is pest control. And one of the theories on this is that it actually, the insects have like a waxy coating on them. The diatomaceous earth actually sticks to that, and it's thought, we don't really know exactly for sure, but it's thought that because the edges of these the diatomaceous earth is so sharp and so hard that it causes little abrasions on the exoskeleton of the insect, and it causes them to dehydrate. And as long as they come in contact with it, it may take a few days, but it's 100% effective. And this opens all new vistas for non-toxic pest control if you want to do organic gardening. So it's very useful. Now, let me point out, and this is on your paper, there are 2 types of diatomaceous earth. Okay? There's an industrial type that is, you do not want to use this. Stay away from it. It's got chemicals added to it. It's been heated. It is not pure. But the food-grade diatomaceous earth, which is what we have available back here on the table, it says DE. I just didn't want to have to write out diatomaceous earth 30 times on these bags. So I just put DE, diatomaceous earth, and we have some available. It's $3 a bag. Once I get done with this today, you might want to think about, if for nothing else, pest control. Because as I said, it's 100% effective. Now, who likes these critters? Roaches. 100% effective. Have you ever had these in your garden? Aphids? 100% effective. Just dust it on the... And the website, I think it's called earthworks.com. I'll look that up again and be sure. But I think it's Earthworks. Maybe I put it in here. Let me see. Earthworks Health. It's on the second page at the very bottom. Earthworks Health. I did put it on here. If you go there, they actually sell the diatomaceous earth on their website, and that is a good resource if you want to go to that website and find out more information about diatomaceous earth. They sell products that you can dust the diatomaceous earth on your plants, on your pets, and everything. Who wants bed bugs? Raise your hand if you'd like to have bed bugs. I didn't think so. If you'd like to get rid of bed bugs, this is safe. If you've got to go to a hotel, it might not be a bad idea to kind of dust yourself before you go to a hotel. Diatomaceous earth is used in food storage. They put it in with bulk grains and stuff. It keeps insects out. The insects cannot survive in grains that are stored, and you can also use it in home grain storage. If you use, like if you store beans, if you store rice, whatever, in your home, mix a little diatomaceous earth right in with it. It is not toxic to human beings, and it'll keep the bugs out of your grains. Isn't he cute when you like to take him away? So you can dust the diatomaceous earth right on your pets. It helps to take care of fleas and ticks. Put it in their food, and it takes care of parasites. So this stuff is almost too good to be true. But you know, parasites is what I'd like to spend a little bit more time on. Parasites and toxins. Let me touch a little bit on toxins before I move on. And I've got a slide on that a little bit later. But Suzanne and Roxanne both talked a little bit about toxins today. Julie talked about water and flushing those things out. Diatomaceous earth will take heavy metals right out of your body. So if you think that you've been exposed to heavy metals, which most of us have, all the chemicals that we're using in our society, the creams that we rub on our bodies, we're getting toxins from those things. The diatomaceous earth is very good to cleanse those things out. Other things that diatomaceous earth has been reported to help with in human beings is lowering blood cholesterol, improving osteoporosis, improving gum and teeth health, because the diatomaceous earth is high in silica, and silica is one of the most important elements in the human body. It helps in mineral absorption of other minerals. Okay, now parasites. That's a nasty thing to think about. How many of you think you might have parasites? Only 2 are brave enough to raise their hands. Well, I've got news for you. If you have a pet, it's guaranteed you have parasites. Okay? Now, let's move on, and I will explain to you why I say that. This is a fish tapeworm. Each one of those segments, if it breaks off, will form a new fish tapeworm. So these guys are hard to get rid of. They can become so dense in the human colon, which this is a cross-section of a human colon. They can become so dense in the human colon they can cause a bowel obstruction. Worms, parasites. Now, what are some signs of parasite infestation? Now, this is quite a list. It's on your handout. I'm just going to read a few for the sake of those who will be watching this later. Some signs of parasite infestation include diarrhea, chronic constipation, gas and bloating, digestive problems, explosive diarrhea, abdominal pain, mucus in the stools, leaky gut, nausea, hemorrhoids, burning in the stomach, bloody stools, chronic fatigue, lethargy, excessive weakness, dry skin or hair loss, allergies, itchy nose, anus, or skin, hives, allergic reactions to food, crawling sensation under the skin, rashes, weeping, eczema. Forward my thing here. Depression, forgetfulness, unclear thinking, restlessness, anxiety, slow reflexes, weight gain, appetite loss, or increased or uncontrollable hunger, but while still feeling hungry. Now, raise your hand if you think you might have parasites. A few more hands, a few more people got brave. Okay, yeah. All right, I'm just going to fast forward through this, and then I want to show you some pictures of these hookworms, and we're going to talk about something else too. These are hookworms. These are pinworms, roundworms, whipworms. These are worms inside the human colon. Suzanne's seen a lot of these when she's helped people do colon cleanses, and she's told me about some of the nasty stuff people get out. Worms. She's actually had people take pictures of what they get out and send it to her. They were so proud of their worms that they got rid of. Some of the toxins, these are some of the toxins that diatomaceous earth can absorb. Methylmercury, E. coli, endotoxins, viruses, organophosphate, pesticide residues. I'm going to spend just a minute on that. In just a minute I'll show you a picture. It's a natural colon cleanser because as it passes through the colon, it scrubs the colon and it can break loose stuff that might have been in there you've been hauling around for 15 years or more. Diatomaceous earth scrubs it as it passes through the colon. My husband knows that I love him, and when I bring him a cup of mud, I say, honey, here's your mud. He knows that I love him even though he's not crazy about the diatomaceous earth. It doesn't have much of a flavor. It's kind of just like drinking chalk, really. But it doesn't have a nasty taste. But look at this. I took this picture in a warehouse here in North Dakota. If you notice that says glyphosate, who knows what that is? You can't answer.
Roundup.
I know you know.
Yeah.
What is it?
Roundup.
Roundup. That's Roundup. Roundup is used everywhere in North Dakota. This is some of the dangers of glyphosate or Roundup use. Cancer, endocrine disorders, DNA abnormalities, infertility, Parkinson's, birth defects, and stomach disorders. Yes?
So what happens, my question has always been, and when I see all these Roundup ready wheat, Roundup ready corn, Roundup ready, but it won't hurt us.
That is not true. And I'm sorry we don't have time to talk about GMOs, but we could spend a whole seminar on GMOs.
That's something like our Congress.
That's right.
We have to be getting some of it.
Some of the disorders that we're seeing, the common things that are coming up now, a lot of people are celiac or are gluten intolerant. All of that has to do with this GMO stuff that's coming in. Okay, and we could spend. There's volumes that have been written on this. So if you ever have an opportunity to speak against GMOs, I encourage you to do so, because that's not the way God made stuff. The Lord didn't put pig genes in tomatoes for a reason, you know. So at any rate, how to use it. Again, I'm not diagnosing, I'm not prescribing, I'm telling you, here's what I do. It's been recommended by some just to take a heaping teaspoonful in water or juice every day. Some people do that. Some people recommend, if you want to use it specifically to get rid of parasites, start with a teaspoon, work up to a tablespoon a day, take it 10 days on, 10 days off for 90 days to get rid of parasites. Okay? Working up to 1 heaping tablespoon a day, 10 days on, 10 days off for 90 days to get rid of the parasites, if you think you might have parasites. And there's other things. I think wormwood is something that you can use to help get rid of parasites, and there's other stuff too if you have any questions about parasites. But we've got just a few minutes left, and I want to take just a minute to talk about contrast baths. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, because if you turn to page 36 in your book, by the way, God's Healing Way, we have extra copies available. Any who are watching, if they want to get a copy of this book, contact us. We have them available. This is one of the finest simple books on natural remedies that I've ever read. Page 36. If you'll turn to page 36. And it talks about the Hydrotherapy Advantage. Just let's read over this list a little bit. Now, hydrotherapy is the use of water in treatment. Okay, in treating disease. It's easily applied to the skin surface. It has virtually no side effects. The only thing is you have to be careful when you use hydrotherapy not to use too hot of water. If you're treating someone with diabetic neuropathy or any kind of neurological disorder where they can't detect the heat of the water, in that case you want to make sure that you don't get your water over about 105 degrees. Any higher than that, don't use it for a diabetic, because they're not going to be able to tell you that's burning me. Okay? And it's also not a good idea on a diabetic with neuropathy to use water that's too cold. Just use cool water, cold tap water when you use the contrast. It produces no toxins or waste products. You tell me which drug does that. Tell me which drug does not produce side effects or toxins in the body. As a result, it does not tax or overwork the liver or the kidneys. We want to keep those organs of elimination clear. You remember last week we talked about the car with the catalytic converter that my friend drove. It got clogged up and the car just couldn't go. And that's the same with us. If our organs of elimination get clogged up, we just don't quite have that oomph that we need. Okay. It's inexpensive and readily available. It can be done in the convenience of the home. It imparts a sense of well-being. Drugs lack this effect. Next week I'm going to talk about fomentations. And I remember shortly after my husband and I were married, he got sick and he needed fomentations. And you know, while I was applying the fomentations and helping him, he started crying. Because of the care, the hands-on care. He'd never experienced anything like that. Of somebody actually spending time taking care of him. And so that's part of the benefit of hydrotherapy, is that one-on-one, that communication of love, in spending the time and taking the time to touch and take care. I am investing myself in this individual. And that really does impart a sense of well-being. And I can attest to that myself. I could give you a whole hour worth of testimonials on that. Okay, the contrast bath is on page 37. We talked about one of the cautions, and that is with diabetic neuropathy. Again, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. What I do want to do is give you a testimony tonight in just a minute. Let's talk about just a little bit of this. It talks about in here beginning your treatments with prayer. And I think that's very important, because who made these remedies?
God.
Who gave the water this property?
God.
Who gave our bodies the ability to respond to these treatments? God did. And so we need to appeal to the Lord to bless these treatments when we do them. Okay? So always, when you begin a treatment, whether it's on yourself or for a loved one or somebody you just met, always begin with prayer. Okay? That's very important. The way that the contrast bath works, it's very simple to do. All you need is 2 containers, some cold water, some hot water, and a few towels, and a patient. Now, for instance, say like when I got bit by the dog and the cat this summer, I did contrast baths, and I had a big basin of hot water, and instead of having a basin of cold water when I was treating the dog bite, which was on my arm, I just ran it under the water. When I was treating the cat bite, which was on my leg, I had 2 big buckets to stick my whole leg down in, one hot and one cold. What that does is it creates like a pump. The hot water, what does that do to the blood vessels? Who knows? It opens the blood vessels. The cold water, it closes them down. Now what is that doing to the blood?
Pumping it.
It's pumping it, okay? It's getting rid of the toxins and bringing that fresh blood in so that the body can heal itself, okay? We're cooperating with nature. Now, so what I did when I got bitten by the dog, I told you last week when I was talking about charcoal that by the time I got off the airplane, because I couldn't take care of it like I needed to traveling home, I had a red streak that was starting to go up my arm, and that really kind of alarmed me. It got my attention, and I knew that the poultices were not going to be aggressive enough. So I thought, well, I need to get serious about this. And I had a lot of people calling me saying, you need to go to the doctor, you need to go to the doctor, you need to go to the doctor. Doctors have their place. And I'll be the first one to tell you, again, as I said last week, if I wreck my car and I break my leg and the bone is sticking out, I don't need a charcoal poultice. I need to go to the emergency room. Okay? So, allopathic medicine, which is modern medicine, the hospitals out here, they have their place. And I do believe that I would avail myself of them if I needed to. I'd have died into, what was it, 2010. My appendix almost ruptured and I had to have emergency surgery. So anyway, back to this. I set up my big basin full of hot water, but I put charcoal. I put about 1/3 of a cup of charcoal in that basin of hot water. And I put my arm in there, and I did those treatments 2 or 3 times a day. And in less than a day, that red streak was gone, the pain was lessened, there was no swelling, and the wound was clean. Now, I want to ask Brother Bill if he would come up here. This is my Grandpa Bill. I want you to roll up your sleeve and show them this arm. Maybe y'all can zoom in with the camera a little bit. Can y'all see that? Now this is, what's today? Sunday? When Bill called me last Monday and he said, Dana, what do I do with this charcoal poultice? How long do I leave it on? I said, well, what are you putting it on? Oh, I burned my arm a little bit. You know, I'm thinking a little burn, you know. But I should have known better, because this is Bill. You know, when he does something, he does it right.
It was that, you can see it's pink here, and it was all beyond that, it's healing.
Yeah, okay, so I'm thinking little burn. I didn't know what he had on his arm. So I said, well, you need to change it once every, 3 or 4 hours or so. Wednesday night, when I saw him at prayer meeting, and he showed me his arm, I nearly had a fit. His forearm was swollen twice the size. It was all red. He didn't have, even in his hand there was swelling. The wound was nasty, icky looking. I nearly had a fit. So I called his daughter Fonda and I got him in trouble. And she fussed at him.
I'll do the talking.
Okay.
She come on me, so did Elsie. And you got to go to the doctor. And of course, air I knew Dana, which I'm grateful for her expertise. But I've been on charcoal all my life. I use it internally and externally because it's always been its weight in gold. If I have a stomach ache or upset stomach, I take a teaspoon and shake it up in water and down it, and within minutes it's gone. And my wife is hard to convince that there's things that you could do like this. Finally I got her convinced one time. She said, maybe I should take that.
When the bee stung me.
And then she done it when the bee stung, when it stung her too. And just like that, it took care of it. But I want to say personally, that's one of the best things that God has given.
Amen.
And you can use it internally and externally. And I'm glad she's said what she has, what do you call that, deity?
Diatomaceous Earth.
That's something I think we all need.
That's right. Okay, thank you, Bill. So, the reason I knew that charcoal would take care of his wound. I've dealt with enough nasty looking wounds that I knew that the charcoal would take care of it, but I knew Bill is busy. He's working a lot, and I was concerned that Bill wouldn't be aggressive enough in treating it. But bless his heart, he did exactly what I told him to do.
Amen.
And he must have done even more than I told him to do, because when he showed me, yes sir.
She's disputing the quantity that I was using. The quantity didn't bother me. That comes cheap. But I put in a cup full, and I put in my barrel are twice as big as yours because I got a big arm.
Yeah.
I got it under the water, and I'll tell you, I kept doing that in the hot and the cold and the hot and the cold. Otherwise, we've had the experience when I lost my finger because I went to a doctor, and that's why I lost it.
Yeah.
I only cut the tip of it. So you got to be aggressive with anything on your hands or your feet. And so once you learn that, and if you don't remember, I'm getting old, I forget. So.
Good. Well, he was a good patient, and I was very concerned, but I tell you what, when I saw that thing yesterday, I just was leaping and praising God, because it looks so much different than what it did Wednesday night. John saw it, Kaylin saw it. I mean, it was...
It was all an open blister is what it was, that hole.
Yeah, it was an open blister, and it was infected. He was badly infected. And I was very concerned, because that's the kind of thing you don't mess with it. Those of you who are nurses, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so contrast baths work. If it's a bad infection or something, don't be afraid to dump charcoal in there. You know what? Charcoal can tattoo you if it's an open wound, but I'll tell you my philosophy. If it's a choice between a little bit of a tattoo on my arm or my hand, you know, from an infected wound, and taking antibiotics, and risking losing a limb or whatever, I think I'll deal with a little bit of a tattoo. Doesn't always do that either, it's just a risk. I want to point out this book to you. In closing, we're almost done. How many of you have heard of Steve Wahlberg? A lot of you have heard of Steve Wahlberg. Has anybody heard of his experience with his son being toxic? If you have not read this book, Surviving Toxic Terrorism, you need, I think, you may be able to read this on his website, I'm not sure, but I know you can order it from him. I think this is from Remnant Publications. Steve Wahlberg, Surviving Toxic Terrorism. If you have not read this, to understand the danger of toxins in our environment and keeping our bodies cleansed of these things, read it.